Before time began, before even the first star had dared to pierce the void, there was only Vael. Vael was neither sky nor earth, neither wind nor fire, though in its essence it contained all of these and more. It was a being of formless power, vast, beyond comprehension, stretching across the silence that had yet to be named. Its thoughts were oceans, its sighs were storms, and its dreams shaped the bones of the world that would one day be. Vael dreamed long and alone. Its dreams were not idle visions. They were the seeds of existence itself. From these dreams, the first rivers were carved. The mountains pushed skyward, and the stars were flung into the void like shards of crystal fire. Yet dreams, as fragile as they are never free from imperfection. From the edge of Vael's mind came shadows, not mere absence of light, but hungry, gnawing, thinking things that coveted the whole of Vael's brilliance. They slithered through the newborn universe, seeking to consume the dreamer along with the dream. The shadows whispered promises and threats, weaving doubt into the heart of Vael. Though the being was infinite, the shadow was persistent, and for a time, even Vael feared that the vastness of itself might not withstand this creeping void. And so, in a final terrible act of will, Vael shattered. The great being tore itself asunder, spilling essence into the emptiness. From its heart burst fire that would ignite suns and starfields. From its veins poured rivers that would flow across the lands of future mortals. From its breath came winds that would sweep across continents. And from its final sigh arose a song, a lament and promise woven into the fabric of existence that echoed in all corners of what would become Vaelora. In the wake of this cataclysm, fragments of Vael's consciousness took form as the first gods, radiant echoes of the whole. These beings descended upon the newborn lands, each claiming dominion over some aspect of the world. Sky, tide, stone, flame, shadow, and song. Their forms reflected their wills. Some walked in light that shimmered like starlight. Some moved in darkness deeper than the night. Some carried the heat of molten mountains within their flesh. For ages they ruled the land, shaping empires and founding the first civilizations. Humans, Nitharis, Druvakar, Gralith, all were molded by divine hands, gifts of the gods, lingering fragments. They demanded worship, and in turn, the mortals honored them. Cities were built to the heavens, towers of stone and crystal, roads carved into mountains, oceans bridged by impossible bridges. The gods' glory seemed eternal. Yet even divine power is imperfect. Each god held but a fragment of Vael's essence, and with that fragment came jealousy, greed, and fear. And so came the fracture, the gods' greatest mistake. Their desires clashed as they reached for the one source of power none could fully possess, the Etherean core. This crystal heart, born from the last remnant of Vael's soul, pulsed with a power beyond imagining. Its light could birth mountains, its song could shape minds, its warmth could ignite life itself. To control the core was to command creation. The gods fought. The oceans boiled, hurricanes tore across the fledgling lands, mountains crumbled to dust, and rivers of fire scarred the earth. Lightning tore the skies in jagged white veins. Even the stars trembled in the heavens, threatened by the struggle below. The war between gods was both magnificent and terrible, and in the end, it shattered not only Vaelora, but the harmony of creation itself. The Etherean core, unable to be claimed by any god, retreated into the marrow of the world, slipping into slumber, hidden in caverns beneath the roots of the mountains and the bones of Vael's broken body. And as the core withdrew, the gods fell silent. Some say they were slain, others whisper they were exiled to corners of the universe beyond mortal reach. Only their echoes remained, lingering in relics, ruins, and bloodlines infused with fragments of their power. Yet prophecy survives even when gods are gone. Mortals, though short-lived and fragile, carry the memory of the Etherian core in stories, songs, and dreams. It is said that when the core awakens, it will sing a song of power and peril, and both light and shadow will bleed into the world. At that moment, mortals must choose. Will Vaelora rise again in brilliance, or fall into darkness beyond recall? From the ashes of Vael's body, new life began. Forests rose where blood had flowed, seas shimmered where tears had fallen, and creatures crawled from the bones of the world. Some luminous, some dark, some bearing a spark of the old divine fire. The first mortals walked the lands, unaware that the core slept beneath their feet, that every war, famine, and victory they endured was part of a pattern older than memory. The Netheris, starborn of luminous form, remembered the song of Vael and sought to honor it in their cities of crystal and moonstone. The Druvakar, draconic and proud, claimed the high mountains, their scales glinting like molten rock. The Gralith, born of stone and slow of heart, rooted themselves in the deepest valleys, patient as the mountains themselves. Humans, ever ambitious, wandered and built, unaware that the core's pulse thrummed in secret beneath their ambitions. And so Vaelora settled into its first age, a world of wonder and peril, of beauty and hunger. The core waited, silent yet alive, and the shadow, patient and cunning, slithered in the corners, waiting for its hour to return. Even in the earliest days, whispers passed among the wise, that when mortals touched the core, when its song awoke fully, the world would tremble, and only those unbroken by fear, those whose hearts could balance courage with wisdom, would determine the dawn of a new age, or witness the eternal night. Thus begins the story of Vaelora, a world born of sacrifice and strife, a land where destiny sleeps in crystal, and where shadows stir to challenge the light. Chapter 1. A Festival of Dawn. The village of Caelith woke slowly that morning, bathed in the pale blush of spring sunlight. Smoke curled from chimneys and mingled with the scent of freshly turned soil, flowers, and warm bread. In the open square, villagers moved hurriedly, stringing garlands of crimson and gold from the timbered houses, tying ribbons to wooden posts, and stacking baskets of fruit and grain in preparation for the Festival of Dawn, a celebration marking the first full day of spring and the promise of warmth and growth. Arik, son of the blacksmith, lingered at the edge of the square, watching the villagers bustle like busy ants. His hands, calloused and blackened from years of hammering iron with his father, twitched with restlessness. He had long grown accustomed to life in Caelith, but he had always felt, even as a child, that he belonged to something larger, something beyond the smoke-choked streets and sun-dappled fields. Arik, a familiar voice called, breaking his thoughts. Serenia, daughter of the village herbalist, bounded toward him, a braid of golden hair bouncing against her shoulder. In her hands, she carried a woven lantern adorned with blue feathers and tiny bells that jingled with every step. "You'll be late for the procession if you stand staring at the sky again," she chided, a teasing lilt in her voice. Her eyes were sharp, bright green, curious as the first shoots of spring poking through the thawing earth. Arik grunted. "I was thinking," he muttered. Thinking was dangerous, he knew, because thoughts often led to questions. And questions, especially in Caelith, were rarely welcome. "Come on, let's get these lanterns ready." The festival was a spectacle of colors and sounds. Children raced through the streets, shrieking with laughter, their hands clutching ribbons and wildflowers. Women sang in high voices, melodies handed down from generations whose names had been lost to time. Men carried crates of bread, meat, and honey, setting them on tables that would soon be buried under the bounty of spring. And everywhere fires were lit. Small bonfires, lanterns, torches, meant to honor the Ashvara, the immortal firebird whose appearance was said to bless the land with warmth and growth. Yet the villagers' joy that morning was tempered with a subtle unease. Some muttered among themselves, glancing skyward as though expecting the sun to falter, the wind to die, or the earth to shiver beneath their feet. Arik noticed it too. A strange redness had streaked the horizon, an unnatural glow that painted the clouds in deep crimsons and molten gold. It was too vivid, too precise, too alive to be merely the rising sun. "Look," whispered Serenia, tugging at his sleeve. She pointed toward the sky. A streak of flame arced above the village, wings spread wide, burning not with fire, but with a radiance that seemed alive. The villagers gasped. Mothers grabbed their children, elders whispered prayers under trembling breaths. And above them all, the shape vanished into the clouds, leaving only a faint trail of smoke and the lingering scent of ozone. "An omen," muttered one elder, clutching his wooden staff. "The Ashvara returns. The first sighting in centuries." Arik's heart thumped. He had heard tales of the Ashvara, of course, immortal firebirds that burned themselves to ash only to rise again in new glory. They were said to appear only when the world shifted, when a power, long forgotten, stirred beneath the earth. The rest of the festival continued, but the magic of the moment was lost to many, obscured by routine and celebration. Arik could not shake the image of the glowing bird. In his dreams that night, it returned. Wings ablaze, eyes like molten gold, flying over lands he had never seen, singing a song that echoed in his chest like the beating of a hidden heart. The next morning, life returned to its ordinary rhythm. Arik and Serenia ventured into the fields, collecting herbs for her mother and repairing fences for the village's livestock. The sky was calm, yet the memory of the Ashvara haunted every shadow and breeze. As they walked, they stumbled upon a clearing they had never noticed before. A small hollow ringed with stones that seemed almost deliberate in their placement. At the center of the clearing, half buried in the blackened earth, lay a shard of crystal. Its surface was smooth and impossibly luminous, pulsing faintly as if it contained a heartbeat of its own. Arik bent to touch it, and a thrill raced through him. Not fear, but a sense of profound recognition. The shard hummed under his fingers, a deep, resonant vibration that echoed in his chest. "Arik." Serenia's voice was a whisper, her hand on his arm. "What is it?" I don't know," he said, slipping the shard into his satchel. "But I feel something important." Unseen, in the shadows of the forest bordering the village, a pair of eyes glowed faintly. Kalen, a Netheris wanderer whose skin shimmered like starlight, watched the pair. He had journeyed far to find this moment, to witness the first stirrings of the Etherian core in mortal hands. That night, as Kalith settled into uneasy slumber, Arik dreamed again of fire and song, of a heart beating beneath the earth, of shadows gathering and stirring like smoke. And in the distance, faint whispers traveled on the wind, words that seemed to reach only him. The core awakens. The time is nigh. Chapter 2. Ashes in the Sky. The morning after the Festival of Dawn arrived with an uneasy quiet over Kalith. The village, still recovering from the shock of the Ashvara's appearance, moved sluggishly. Smoke from the previous night's bonfires hung low in the air, mixing with the scent of damp soil and thawing spring grass. Children no longer raced through the streets, and even the elders seemed subdued, murmuring prayers into the wind with trembling voices. Arik walked alongside Serenia through the central square, the shard clutched in his satchel. The crystal pulsed faintly, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Every now and then, he felt it tugging him forward, drawing him towards something he did not yet understand. "I can't stop thinking about it," Arik said, breaking the silence. "I keep seeing the bird in my dreams. Its wings, they burn with a fire I've never seen. It's more than an omen. I think it's a warning." Serenia glanced at him, her expression a mix of worry and curiosity. "A warning for whom? Us? The village? or for the world? Arik hesitated. He didn't know the answer. Something deep within him whispered that it was personal, yet vast enough to engulf all of Vaelora. He had never felt such a heavy burden in his life. As they spoke, a rider approached the village square, dust trailing behind the horse like smoke. The messenger wore the colors of Calveth, the human capital far to the south, and his arrival sent a ripple of tension through the villagers. He dismounted swiftly, handing a sealed scroll to the village elder, who unfurled it with trembling hands. The words were brief but dire. The sighting of the Ashvara had spread to the capital. King Aravel himself had been informed. Orders were sent to keep watch on the borderlands. Reports of phantom wolves, Velkraith, had arrived from nearby villages. The shard in Arik's possession suddenly felt heavier, as though the world itself had become aware of it. Kaelin, the Nitheris who had appeared during the festival, emerged from the shadows of the forest. His luminous skin shimmered under the sunlight, faintly illuminating the path in front of him. His eyes, bright and sharp, surveyed the village and its inhabitants with careful precision. "Kaelin," Arik greeted cautiously, "you've returned." Kaelin inclined his head, his gaze resting briefly on the pulsing shard in Arik's satchel. "I have come," he said, his voice low but resonant, "because the core has begun to stir. It is faint, but it sings. And you feel its pulse. That is why it has chosen you." Arik's stomach twisted. "Chosen me? What do you mean?" "The core does not awaken without reason. Its song is subtle, faint, yet it reaches those it deems worthy. You have touched its echo, Arik. You are connected to it now, whether you wish to be or not." Serenia reached out to steady him. "Are you telling us that this shard is alive?" Kaelin nodded. "Alive, yes. Conscious in ways that mortals cannot fully comprehend. It is not a simple stone, nor a mere fragment of crystal. It is part of Vael's very essence, and with its stirring comes danger. Shadows, ancient and patient, have sensed it. They will come for it, and for those who carry it." Before Arik could respond, the air shifted. A subtle chill traveled through the square, carrying a faint hiss like smoke sliding over stone. Villagers turned uneasily, whispering among themselves, some clutching children, others reaching for tools or makeshift weapons. From the edge of the forest came a low, chilling howl. It was not the cry of any known animal. It was the eerie, resonant call of the Velkraith. The sound made the hair on Arik's arms stand on end. Even Kaelin flinched slightly, his starlight dimming as he focused. "They are near," he murmured. "You must move, now." Arik's mind raced. He had never left Calith, never crossed beyond the fields and forests he had grown up in. But the shard pulsed insistently against his chest, urging him forward. He looked at Serenia. "We have to go," he said firmly. "If this is real, we can't stay here." Serenia nodded, though her green eyes were wide with fear. "Where will we go?" "South," Kaelin said, "to the capital. There we will find guidance. There, perhaps, answers." The trio moved quickly through the village, avoiding the villagers who gawked or fled in panic. The forest loomed ahead, dark and silent, yet alive with the rustle of leaves and hidden eyes. Kaelin led the way, his steps light and sure, despite the underbrush and roots that threatened to trip them. As they entered the Kelith wilds, the forest seemed to close around them. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy in scattered beams, painting patches of moss and foliage with gold and green. Birds flitted among the branches, and somewhere in the distance, a stream gurgled over rocks. For a moment, the beauty of the forest calmed Arik's racing heart. But the shadows moved. Arik felt them before he saw them. A subtle shift in the air, a whisper of sound that did not belong to the wind or the birds. The shard in his satchel pulsed stronger, warming his hand as if it were alive, warning him of unseen danger. Kaelin stopped suddenly, raising a hand. "Velkraith," he whispered. "They hunt in packs, unseen by mortal eyes. We are being followed." From the undergrowth, a pale, ghostly form leapt. It was a wolf, larger than any Arik had seen, its fur shimmering like mist, eyes glowing a greenish light that burned into his vision. It moved silently, but the weight of its presence pressed on him like a stone. Behind it, another emerged, then another, until Arik counted at least 6, their forms barely distinguishable from the shifting shadows. Arik gripped the shard instinctively. A warmth spread through him, coursing up his arm, filling him with a strange energy. He raised the shard and a burst of light erupted from it, a golden radiance that seared through the mist. The Velkraith recoiled, hissing and snapping, their forms flickering as if they were shadows projected onto the world rather than solid creatures. "Keep moving!" Kaelin shouted. "Do not stop!" They ran, stumbling over roots and rocks, the forest alive with rustling shadows. The pack pursued, but the shard's light kept them at bay, forcing the spectral wolves to retreat into the depths of the forest. At last, they reached a clearing, gasping and trembling. Serenia sank to the ground, her hands clutching her knees. What are they?" she whispered. Kaelin's expression was grim. "Velkraith, creatures of shadow and malice. They are drawn to the core and to those who carry it. You have awoken forces older than your kingdom, older than the first humans." Arik's pulse raced. "Then, the shard, the core, it's real?" Kaelin nodded. "Real and dangerous beyond measure. The journey ahead will test you, Arik, and it will not spare those you care about." As night fell over the forest, the trio huddled near a small stream, the shard pulsing softly in Arik's satchel. In the darkness, the trees whispered, leaves rustling with voices almost human. The forest was alive, aware and watching. Somewhere deep within the shadows, a pair of eyes glowed faintly. Patient, waiting. The first stirrings of an ancient evil had begun, and Arik, clutching the shard to his chest, realized that his life and the life of Vaelora itself had just changed forever. Chapter 3. The Stranger's Warning. The forest of Kelith Wilds stretched endlessly, a living labyrinth of twisted roots, towering trees, and shadows that seemed to shift with the wind. The trio moved cautiously, the shard tucked safely into Arik's satchel, its pulse steady yet insistent, like a heartbeat echoing through the earth itself. The forest had calmed since the encounter with the Velkraith, but the unease lingered. Every rustle, every shifting branch made Arik's heart race. Serenia clutched his arm tightly. "Do you feel it too?" she whispered. "The way the forest watches us?" Arik nodded, though he could not find the words to explain the sensation. It was not fear alone. The forest seemed alive, aware of their presence. Kaelin, walking just ahead of them, glanced over his shoulder, his luminous eyes reflecting a faint silver glow. "They watch," he said softly, almost to himself. "Not all of the forest is hostile, but some things stir that should not." Arik's thoughts returned to the shard, its weight now feeling heavier with responsibility. He had glimpsed something in it, not a reflection, but a memory, or perhaps a warning. Flames dancing across a distant landscape, shadows moving with purpose, and a voice calling, unintelligible yet familiar, deep within his mind. The path led them to a small clearing, where the sunlight broke through the canopy in scattered beams, illuminating moss-covered stones. Here, Kaelin finally stopped. "You must know the truth," he said. "The core does not stir lightly. Those who touch it awaken forces that do not rest." Arik's stomach twisted. "I touched it by accident," he said. "I didn't know." Kaelin shook his head. "No one touches the core by accident. Even fragments of it have a will of their own. They find those who can bear their burden." Serenia leaned forward. "What burden? What does it want from him?" Kaelin's eyes flickered with unease. It wants nothing from him personally. It seeks the balance of the world, but the forces it draws will not discriminate. Those who are innocent will suffer, just as the guilty might survive. A rustling in the underbrush interrupted their conversation. A figure emerged, cloaked, hood drawn low, moving with a grace that was almost unnatural. Kalen stiffened, placing himself between the newcomers and Arik and Serenia. The figure lowered its hood, revealing a woman with hair like night, her eyes a deep violet that seemed to shimmer with a light of their own. She carried no weapons, but walked as though the forest itself obeyed her steps. "You are far from the roads of men," she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. "And yet, I have found you." Kalen stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am called Lyria," she replied. "I am neither friend nor foe, though what I bring may change that. You hold something precious, something that the shadows will seek without pause. You carry the shard of the Etherean." Arik's heart leapt. "The core?" Lyria's eyes flicked toward him. "A fragment, yes, one of many. It is small now, but it holds the power of worlds, and its awakening will ripple through the lands. That is why I have come, to warn you and to guide you if you are willing." Serenia's voice trembled. "Guide us? We don't even know you. How can we trust you?" Lyria smiled faintly, though her eyes remained serious. "Trust is earned, and there is little time. Forces already hunt the shard, and they will not stop until it is theirs. If you refuse my guidance, you will face the consequences alone." Arik felt the shard pulse again, almost in response to Lyria's presence. He opened his satchel and held it in his hand. Warmth radiated through him, and in its glow he glimpsed fleeting images. Cities burning, forests drowned in shadow, and figures of immense power standing over lands that quaked beneath them. Kalen's jaw tightened. "The Vaethar are moving," he said grimly. "They are servants of shadow, and they have sensed the core's fragment. They will come for it, and they will not hesitate to kill anyone in their path." "Then we must go," Arik said, voice steadying despite the fear curling in his chest. "We cannot stay here. We must protect it and find answers." Lyria nodded. "Good. You have courage, though you know not its cost. Follow me. I know paths through the wilds that even Kalen does not tread." The group followed her, weaving through dense thickets and over mossy rocks. The forest seemed to shift around them, responding to Lyria's presence. Branches parted as they passed, and hidden roots lifted slightly to ease their footing. Kalen's lips were pressed in a thin line. He had not seen such mastery of the forest before. As night fell, the forest grew darker, though the moonlight filtered through the trees in silver beams. The sounds of wildlife faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that pressed against their ears. Every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle held menace. Suddenly Lyria stopped and raised her hand. The air grew colder, and from the darkness shapes began to emerge, shadows coalescing into humanoid forms, their faces hidden beneath dark hoods, eyes glowing faintly green. The Vaethar. Arik felt the shard pulse violently, its warmth exploding into a searing heat through his veins. Kalen drew a sword that shimmered with starlight, while Lyria raised her hands, chanting words older than the forest itself. A barrier of shimmering light sprang up around them, pushing back the advancing Vaethar. The air filled with a high, resonant hum, the forest itself seeming to tremble. The Vaethar hissed and recoiled, but their eyes never left Arik and the shard. One of them spoke, a voice like gravel scraping across stone. "The core will be ours. The boy will not escape." Arik gritted his teeth. He felt fear clawing at him, but also something stronger, determination. He was not just carrying a fragment of the core, he had become its protector. And if the shadows wanted it, they would have to face him first. The barrier shimmered, the Vaethar retreating slightly into the darkness. Lyria's voice rose in incantation, and the forest seemed to respond. Branches curling to trap the intruders, roots rising to snare them. "They will not give up," Kaelin warned. "And neither can we. We must move quickly." Arik nodded, gripping the shard tighter. The forest stretched ahead, dark and unknowable, yet a path seemed to open for them, as if the land itself recognized the importance of their journey. As they moved deeper into the Keyleth wilds, Arik's mind swirled with questions. What was the Core's purpose? Why had it chosen him? And most frightening of all, what horrors would arise from its awakening? Above them, the moon broke free from a veil of clouds, illuminating the path ahead. In its light, Arik glimpsed a distant figure standing on a ridge, a colossal shape, tall as a mountain, cloaked in shadow. Hollowed eyes glowed faintly, and the ground beneath it seemed to shiver with its weight. The Hollowed were awake. Arik swallowed hard. The journey he had begun, the path he could not turn from, had already begun to shape the fate of Vaelora, and there was no turning back. Already, Chapter 4. A King's Doubt. The city of Calveth lay nestled in a wide valley, cradled by jagged mountains whose peaks pierced the clouds like shattered teeth. From a distance it appeared tranquil, the streets and spires bathed in the soft golden light of early morning. But appearances could be deceptive. Behind the walls of the capital, where stone towers rose high and banners fluttered in the wind, the city was a hive of whispers, tension, and unrest. King Aravel, ruler of the human kingdom of Keyleth and its surrounding lands, sat upon his high throne in the Hall of Dawn. The hall itself was carved from pale stone, walls etched with the tales of the first kings, and windows so tall that sunlight poured in like liquid gold. Yet even in such beauty, Aravel's gaze was distant, heavy with worry. He had received reports from border villages, strange omens, cattle found dead in peculiar formations, entire households vanished without a trace. The sighting of the Ashvara in Keyleth had reached him through the capital's network of messengers and spies, carried alongside rumors of phantom wolves stalking the forests. His council had come to him divided, some calling for vigilance, others demanding immediate military action. "Your Majesty," intoned Lord Gathrin, the king's oldest advisor, voice gravelly with age, "this Ashvara, it is but a bird, a creature of legend. I counsel caution, but there is no need to stir panic." Aravel's eyes, grey as storm-laden skies, flicked toward the elder man. "Caution," he said, the word sharp with disbelief. "Do you not see the reports? Entire villages vanish, forests shrouded in unnatural shadow, whispers in the night. There are things moving beyond our borders, Gathrin, things that do not obey natural law. I have ruled for 40 summers, and never have I felt the land so uneasy." Gathrin sighed, adjusting the folds of his robe. "Sire, legend and reality are not the same. People see omens in the wind and fear shadows in the trees. You must temper your judgment with reason." Aravel leaned forward, resting his elbows on the arms of his throne. "Reason alone will not protect us from what approaches. If the stories are true, if the Ashvara has appeared after centuries of absence, then something stirs in Vaelora that will demand more than reason." From across the hall, a younger counselor, Lady Marina, spoke cautiously. "Your Majesty, the Northern Watchmen report sightings of cloaked figures moving near the forest borders, though no one can identify them. Soldiers have disappeared, and there are rumors of creatures unlike any we have catalogued. I think perhaps we should send scouts into the Keyleth wilds before the unrest grows." Aravel's gaze hardened. "Scouts or soldiers?" His hand tapped the arm of the throne, drumming a slow, steady beat. "Send scouts, yes, but arm them as though they face war. And tell Liesa, the captain of my guard, to lead a detachment. She is wise and unyielding. If these reports are true, only someone like her can act swiftly and decisively." A murmur ran through the council. Liessa was known throughout the kingdom as both fair and relentless. Her loyalty to the king was unquestioned, but her methods were sometimes harsh. Gathrin raised a hand, his voice trembling with unease. "Sire, are you certain we should involve the army? We risk panic, disorder. The common folk will see soldiers moving through the villages and assume invasion." Aravel's eyes darkened, a storm brewing behind them. "If what approaches is as dangerous as the omens suggest, we do not have the luxury of subtlety." He rose from his throne, the stone beneath his boots echoing through the hall. "Prepare the scouts, prepare the guards, and send word to the border villages, reinforce them immediately. I will not see my people fall to shadows because we hesitated." As the council debated further, Aravel withdrew to the balcony overlooking the city. The streets below bustled with morning activity, merchants setting up stalls, children running between carts and market stands, nobles moving in silks to appointments long planned. From this height, the city seemed alive, vibrant, protected. And yet, beneath the surface, the unease he felt was palpable. He thought of Calith, of the boy who had glimpsed the Ashvara, the shard now moving silently toward the capital, and of the mysterious Netheris who had arrived there to guard it. Aravel knew nothing of these events, yet some instinct gnawed at him. A certainty that whatever force was stirring, it would soon touch Calveth itself. Later that evening, the king convened a private session with Liessa. The captain arrived promptly, armor polished, blade at her hip, eyes sharp and alert. She bowed low, her expression unreadable. "Sire," she said, "I have prepared the men as you requested. Scouts are ready to move at first light." Aravel nodded. "Good. Take them north, but move with caution. If the reports are accurate, you will face enemies unlike any you have seen. Use your judgment. And Liessa, trust no one." Liessa's jaw tightened. "I will do as commanded, Your Majesty. But I must ask, do you truly believe the Ashvara's appearance is more than omen and superstition?" The king turned to her, grey eyes meeting her sharp gaze. "I do not know," he admitted. "But when legends begin to walk into the world, we cannot afford to doubt them." As Liessa departed, Aravel returned to his chambers, the flickering torchlight casting elongated shadows across the stone walls. He walked to the large window overlooking the mountains, where twilight painted the sky in bruised purples and reds. Somewhere, far to the north, the boy with the shard was walking toward a destiny he could not yet understand. And somewhere in the darkness, ancient forces were awakening, stirred by the same heartbeat that pulsed in the crystal fragment. The king's doubt, which had been quiet and rational for decades, now took root and grew into a gnawing certainty. Something had begun, something that would not wait for armies or councils. The fate of his kingdom, the very survival of the realm, would soon demand choices no mortal could make lightly. And in that moment, King Aravel realized that Vaelora's fragile peace, the one carefully maintained across centuries, was on the verge of shattering. Chapter 5. The Silent Forest. Night had fallen over the Kelith wilds, and with it came a silence so deep it seemed unnatural. The dense canopy above blocked the moonlight almost entirely, leaving only scattered glimmers of stars visible through the thick leaves. The air was cool and heavy, carrying the scent of wet earth, moss, and the faint tang of something unwholesome. Arik led the small group, the shard tucked safely in his satchel. Its pulse, warm and insistent, guided his steps as if it could sense the safest path through the forest. Sirenia walked close, her hand brushing against his arm now and then for reassurance, while Kaelin moved just ahead, eyes flicking constantly between shadows. "Stay close," Kaelin murmured, his voice barely audible. "The Velkraith hunt in packs, and they are clever. You cannot trust your eyes alone." Arik nodded, though his heart beat so rapidly he feared it might betray their position. Every snap of a twig, Every rustle of leaves made him tense. Something about the forest had changed since they had entered. It was alive in a way that went beyond the normal. The trees seemed to lean slightly toward them, as if listening, their roots shifting beneath the surface like serpents. Serenia shivered. "Do you think the forest wants us to leave?" she whispered. Kalen shook his head. "No. Some of it is neutral, some even helpful. But there are corners that are older than men, and those corners remember. They remember the core. They remember its song, and they hunger for it." Arik felt the shard pulse again, hotter this time, thrumming in tune with some hidden rhythm beneath the earth. He clutched it tighter, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. It was not fear, exactly, but a warning. Something powerful was near. They pressed on, stepping carefully over roots and stones. The forest seemed endless, a labyrinth of twisting trees and dark shadows. Somewhere in the distance, a stream whispered over rocks, its gentle sound both comforting and eerie in the oppressive quiet. Suddenly, a low growl broke the silence. The sound was distant at first, but it grew steadily, echoing through the trees. Arik froze. "They're close," Kalen said, voice taut. He drew a slender blade that shimmered faintly in the moonlight, the metal etched with runes older than the capital itself. "Prepare yourselves. Do not make sudden movements. Let the shard guide you." The forest around them shifted again. Shadows moved with unnatural speed, merging and splitting in ways that defied logic. Then, with a sudden rush, they were upon them. The Velkraith, spectral wolves with glowing green eyes, fur like mist, moving silently as death itself. Arik raised the shard instinctively. Light burst forth, golden and searing, illuminating the clearing in a circle that forced the wolves back. They hissed and recoiled, their forms flickering like images reflected on water. Kalen struck, his blade slicing through one of the shadows, which evaporated into a wisp of green smoke. Serenia cried out, dodging a snapping paw, and Arik's stomach twisted in fear. The shard pulsed violently now, the warmth spreading through his arm and into his chest. He realized with a jolt that the shard was responding to the danger, guiding him, empowering him. "Move!" Kalen shouted, his voice carrying over the growls. "We must reach the high ridge. There we can make a stand." They ran, crashing through underbrush, the Velkraith pursuing silently but relentlessly. The forest seemed to resist them, branches twisted to trip their feet, roots snared their ankles, but the shard's light cut a path, forcing a narrow corridor through the darkness. After what felt like hours, they reached a steep slope leading to a ridge. Exhausted and gasping for breath, they scrambled upward. Once on the high ground, they found a small outcropping of rock that gave them a clear view of the forest below. The Velkraith circled the base, green eyes glowing, but they did not attack the ridge directly. Kalen's face was grim. "They do not climb," he said. "Not yet. They wait, and they watch. But they will return." Arik sank to his knees, clutching the shard. He could feel its pulse, strong now, almost like a second heartbeat. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why did it choose me?" Serenia knelt beside him. "It doesn't matter why. What matters is that we protect it. Whatever it is, it's tied to the fate of Vaelora." Kalen's gaze swept the forest. The Velkraith are only the beginning. There are older forces stirring, the Hollowed. They are vast, ancient, and patient. They watch from places you cannot see, moving slowly but inexorably toward their prey. The shard has awakened their interest. Arik swallowed hard. "Then we're being hunted?" Kalen nodded. "Yes, and we are not the only ones. Others will come seeking the core's fragments. Some may help. Most will seek to destroy or possess." The wind shifted, carrying whispers that seemed to echo in Arik's mind. He felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere in the trees a shape moved. Tall, dark, silent. Hollowed, he realized with a shock, the creatures that Kaelin had warned about. "Stay quiet," Kaelin instructed, placing a hand on Arik's shoulder. "Do not draw their attention, and do not let fear guide your steps. The shard will help, but you must be brave." Hours passed. They camped near the ridge, keeping the shard between them. Kaelin taught Arik to sense its pulse, to follow the warmth and the subtle vibrations that indicated danger or the correct path. Serenia kept a careful watch, her knowledge of herbs and natural remedies proving useful even in such a perilous environment. As dawn approached, the forest grew even quieter. The Velkraith had retreated, but the feeling of being watched never left. Arik looked down at the trees below, and in the early light glimpsed faint movements. Not wolves, not human, but massive forms, their shadows stretching long and unnatural. The Hollowed were patient, observing, waiting for a moment of weakness. Kaelin broke the silence. "We must move before the light strengthens. The forest is safest under shadow. Once the sun rises fully, it will reveal paths we do not wish to show, and the Hollowed may act." Arik nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on him. The shard pulsed once more, steady now, guiding them along the safest path through the ridge and into the deeper forest. He realized then that the journey ahead would test more than his courage. It would test his mind, his will, and his heart. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond the trees, the first stirrings of an ancient evil watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Chapter 6. The First City. The morning sun had barely begun to stretch its pale fingers across the valley when Arik, Serenia, and Kaelin crested the final ridge overlooking the capital of Calveth. From this vantage, the city sprawled like a jewel set among jagged mountains. Rooftops glimmered in bronze and slate, towers rose like jagged teeth toward the sky, and the main river sparkled as it wound its way through the bustling streets. Smoke from chimneys mingled with the crisp spring air, carrying the sense of baking bread, leather, and ironwork. Arik could not help but pause, breath catching at the sight. For all its size and splendor, Calveth exuded an air of controlled chaos, life humming with a rhythm both familiar and foreign. Merchants shouted over the market square, children ran between carts, and guards paced the stone streets with a discipline that suggested both pride and unease. "Impressive," Serenia whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "I never imagined anything like this. I thought the capital would be grander, perhaps, but seeing it like this, it's alive." Kaelin did not respond immediately, his eyes scanning the city below with an intensity that made Arik shiver. "Alive, yes," he said at last, "but fragile. It is a place of power, wealth, and ambition, and those qualities attract attention, both the good and the dangerous." Arik adjusted the strap of his satchel, feeling the weight of the shard pulse against his side. The warmth was comforting, yet it reminded him of the responsibility it represented. Somewhere within that city, decisions were being made that would ripple outward, influencing the fate of Vaelora itself. "Then we must enter cautiously," Kaelin continued. "There are eyes everywhere, and not all will welcome travelers who carry fragments of the core." The trio descended the ridge, slipping through small paths, known only to hunters and hermits. Kaelin's guidance ensured they avoided main roads until they reached a secluded gate on the northern edge of the city. Here, the guard was sparse, a single watchman pacing idly. Kaelin stepped forward, speaking in a language that was older than any Arik had ever heard. The words twisted in the air like smoke, subtle and commanding. The guard froze, blinked, and then moved aside without a word, allowing them passage. Inside the city walls, Calveth revealed itself in layers. Narrow cobbled streets wound around broad avenues where merchants sold spices, silks, and magical trinkets. Street performers demonstrated feats of agility and minor illusions, drawing laughter from the crowd. Yet beyond the spectacle, Arik sensed tension. An undercurrent of worry, whispers of unrest, and the constant watchfulness of armed guards. Kaelin led them to a modest inn tucked away in one of the quieter streets. Its walls were timbered and weathered, its roof steep and covered with slate tiles. Inside, the warmth of a hearth welcomed them, the scent of roasting meat mingling with the ever-present fragrance of wood smoke. "We will stay here for now," Kaelin said. "It is safer than the main roads. Tomorrow, we will seek an audience with those who can aid us, or at least advise." As they settled, Arik could not ignore the awareness that the shard pulsed more urgently in the city than it had in the forest. The vibrations were subtle but unmistakable, a heartbeat of the core that resonated with the lives and power structures within Calveth. The next morning, they ventured into the heart of the city. Market squares were crowded with merchants and townsfolk, all moving with a sense of purpose. The king's banners hung from towers and walls, fluttering in the breeze, gold and crimson, symbols of authority, legacy, and pride. Arik felt a strange mixture of awe and fear. Awe at the city's majesty, fear at the realization that in such a place, one misstep could bring disaster. Kaelin guided them to a secluded alley leading to a private audience hall within the palace grounds. The hall was an architectural marvel, carved from pale stone and adorned with intricate mosaics depicting battles, legendary creatures, and the first kings of Calveth. A guard stepped forward, bowing respectfully to Kaelin before gesturing them inside. Within the audience hall, the council of the capital waited. High advisors, military commanders, and scholars who governed under King Aravel. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over Arik, Serenia, and Kaelin. The shard pulsed in response, its warmth intensifying. Arik felt exposed, as though the city itself recognized the fragment and acknowledged the danger it carried. "You bring news," one of the scholars said, voice calm but edged with curiosity. "And yet, I see more than mere travelers. You carry something that hums with power." Kaelin stepped forward. "It is the shard of the Etherean core. The core has begun to awaken, and those who possess even fragments are vulnerable. Forces older than the realm itself are moving, seeking its power." A hush fell over the hall. Aravel himself had not yet entered, but his presence seemed to fill the room. One of the commanders spoke, skepticism in his tone. "Legends and omens. Our scouts report nothing more than wolves and a strange firebird. How do we know this fragment is real?" Arik hesitated. Words seemed inadequate. The shard pulsed in his hand, almost as if urging him to speak. I have seen it, felt it. The shard is alive. It warns me, guides me. The Velkraith are not natural. Shadows are moving toward us." A scholar with silver hair stepped forward, voice trembling. "If what you say is true, the kingdom is in peril. But how can we trust the words of a boy from a small village and two strangers?" Kaelin's voice cut through the tension. "Because if you do not believe now, you will believe too late." As the council debated, Lyria appeared silently at the edge of the hall, her presence commanding attention without a word. The violet gleam of her eyes held authority and warning in equal measure. She bowed slightly. "The core's fragment must be protected. If it falls into the wrong hands, Vaelora itself may crumble." Aravel entered at last, regal and imposing, his grey eyes sharp as they scanned the council and the three newcomers. "I have heard whispers of your arrival," he said, voice deep and resonant. "Kaelin, Lyria, the boy carries a shard, the core. Tell me everything." Kaelin and Lyria exchanged a glance before speaking, recounting the events in Calith, the appearance of the Ashvara, the Velkraith, and the awakening of the shard. Arik remained silent, overwhelmed by the weight of the king's gaze and the enormity of the story. Aravel's face darkened. If this is true, then Vaelora's balance is shifting. The core cannot be allowed to fall into the hands of Shadow. Prepare the city, increase patrols, and Arik, you and your companions will remain under my protection. But know this, the path you walk will be fraught with danger, and not all who wear crowns or robes can be trusted. As the council dispersed to carry out the king's orders, Arik felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Calveth was safe for now, but the city's walls could not shield them forever. Somewhere beyond the mountains and rivers, forces stirred, patient, cunning, and ancient, drawn inexorably to the shard that pulsed in his satchel. Serenia squeezed his hand. "We made it," she whispered. "At least for now." Kaelin's gaze remained fixed on the city streets below. "For now?" he echoed, his tone grim. "But the first trial has only begun. The shadows will not wait for us to be ready, and neither will the core." Arik looked at the shard, its pulse steady yet insistent. He understood fully that their journey had only just begun, and that the first city was merely the threshold to a destiny that would reshape Vaelora forever. Chapter 7. Shadows in the Market. Calveth's streets had never seemed more alive or more dangerous. The morning sun glinted off cobbled stones and polished copper rooftops, but even in daylight, shadows lurked in the alleys and marketplaces. Merchants hawked exotic wares, spices from the eastern deserts, silks from the southern isles, and small charms of bronze, carved with protective runes. Yet beneath the cheerful chaos, Arik sensed something wrong. Kaelin led them cautiously, glancing often at the shard hidden beneath Arik's tunic. The artifact's pulse had grown stronger within the city walls, as if it recognized other sources of power, both benevolent and malign, and reacted accordingly. "Keep your eyes open," Kaelin murmured. "Calveth is safe in name only. There are watchers in every corner, and not all are loyal to the king." As they moved through a crowded market square, a sudden commotion drew their attention. A man in tattered robes stumbled into a stall, scattering baskets of fruit. Merchants shouted, guards rushed to intervene, and the crowd parted to reveal a hooded figure standing silently at the edge of the square. The figure's eyes glowed faintly green, unmistakably otherworldly. Arik felt the shard pulse violently, warm and urgent. He tightened his grip on it, heart hammering. "They found us," Kaelin whispered. "The Velcraith are here, or something like them." The crowd screamed as shadowy shapes emerged from the alleys, blending seamlessly into the people around them. The Vaethar, agents of shadow, moved with silent precision, their forms flickering in and out of visibility. Arik's instincts kicked in. Raising the shard, he focused on the warmth and energy flowing through it. Light flared, golden and searing, casting the Vaethar back and illuminating their ghostly forms. Screams echoed, and panic erupted in the square. Guards charged, but many were paralyzed with fear at the unnatural specters. Kaelin moved beside Arik, striking with his starlit blade. Each swing dissipated shadow forms, sending them into ephemeral wisps. Serenia moved with agility and quick thinking, knocking over carts and creating barriers to protect civilians. Amid the chaos, a voice rang out, commanding and resonant, "Hold fast, do not let fear guide you." It was Lyria, moving like a phantom, her hands weaving intricate gestures that drew silver light from the air itself. Protective wards formed around Arik, Kaelin, and Serenia, forcing the Vaethar to hesitate. The skirmish lasted minutes, though to Arik it felt like hours. When the dust settled, the shadows had retreated, leaving the market in ruins and the citizens trembling with shock. Kaelin glanced at Arik. "This was a warning," he said grimly. "They are probing, testing defenses, learning our weaknesses. This city is a target because of the shard you carry." Arik swallowed hard. "We need to alert the king," he said. "He needs to know the danger is immediate, not theoretical." Lyria nodded. Agreed. But you must understand, not all threats wear familiar faces. Some are hidden among the nobility, within the very halls of power. The core's fragment draws attention from forces that walk in daylight, as well as shadows. Trust will be a scarce commodity. That evening, the group met with King Aravel in private chambers. The king's face was grim, his sharp eyes scanning every detail of Arik and the Shard. "You've seen it firsthand," he said, voice taut. "The danger is real and it is already in the city. We must be vigilant." Arik explained the encounter in the market, Kaelin adding the context of shadow agents and the Shard's significance. Lyria's presence lent weight to the account. Aravel leaned back, considering. If the Vaethar are here, it is because the core has been disturbed. I will reinforce the city guards and increase patrols, but there is more at play. You must remain discreet. The less others know, the better. As the council adjourned, Arik felt a weight settle over him. The city, with all its grandeur and protection, was still vulnerable. And the Vaethar, patient and relentless, would not give up. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the world of Vaelora, its myths, its secrets, and the rise of a shattered dawn, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and see you next time.